All right, ready to dive in. Today we're exploring video art.
Specifically.
Yeah, specifically how it tackles the whole idea of self and form, and we'll be using excerpts from art history self and form to guide us.
Definitely a fascinating area, especially when you think about how video art allows artists to, well, play with the human image
It
in ways we couldn't have even imagined before.
it really does make you stop and think, like, how do we see
Yeah.
ourselves and others?
Exactly. It's almost like seeing things in a whole new light.
For sure. Imagine a world where, I don't know, your reflection could just shift and change in real time.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does it even mean to have a human form when it can be distorted so easily?
It's a question a lot of video artists are trying to answer, I think. The source material even mentions this concept of man as God, which I thought was interesting. It suggests that when video artists are manipulating these images, they kind of take on this, well, almost godlike role.
Yeah, like they're creating and shaping reality just through the lens of a camera.
Yeah.
Reminds me of the whole playing God debate around things like genetic engineering.
Right. Where do we even draw the line?
Yeah. And I don't think it's really about video artists becoming gods. It's more about the power dynamics involved. In image creation, who controls the image? What message are they sending? And how does that impact how we perceive ourselves, the world around us?
It's a little unsettling when you think about it that way, because we're all just bombarded with images constantly, every single day. Ads, social media, movies,
Makes you wonder, are we just absorbing all these messages without even realizing it?
about what's beautiful, what's normal, what's acceptable. Like, who's deciding that?
That's a good question. Especially when you consider how much power we all have now to manipulate images ourselves. With technology, filters, editing apps, deepfakes.
It's almost like the lines between reality and fabrication are getting blurrier.
Totally. And it's a bit like, well, we're all playing God now, in a way,
Hmm.
choosing how we want to be seen.
It's curating our online personas. It's wild.
It is. And that's where I think video art is really insightful. It gives us this framework to understand these dynamics, these power structures.
Okay. So video art makes us question who controls the image, but what about the how? How is the image being manipulated to play with our ideas of self and form? I know the source material mentions Tony Ourseler's Caricature from 2002.
Caricature. Such an interesting piece. Imagine this. A frog-like creature. Big eyes. Wide mouth. Moving around on the screen. Making sounds.
Okay, that's adorable. Sounds adorable, but I have a feeling there's a little more to it than just cuteness.
Oh, absolutely. While it's certainly playful, engaging, I think Ourseler is definitely hinting at something deeper. It's like he's presenting us with this futuristic entertainer almost. A being that exists somewhere between human and something completely new.
A new form of self.
Yeah.
It makes me think of those virtual influencers that are becoming so popular. Are they just a fad? Or are they like the start of something totally new, a new kind of self that only exists digitally?
It's a fascinating question, and I think Ourseler's work really makes us think about it. The possibilities. And maybe even the consequences.
Of these new forms of self-expression.
Exactly.
So we have Ourseler's Caricature presenting this distorted yet strangely endearing image of a potential future self. Are there other artists who are kind of playing with these ideas in similar ways?
Tons. One that comes to mind is Takahiko Limura. He did an interactive installation called, well, it has a long name, but basically it projects people's faces on a screen and distorts their features based on the sounds they make.
Oh, wow. So like a funhouse mirror, but with your voice?
Yeah, exactly. And the playfulness is a big part of why it's so compelling. It makes you want to participate,
Yeah.
to see what's possible, the humor, the delight, all from manipulating the human form.
There's a real sense of joy in these pieces, even though they're dealing with some pretty complex ideas.
Right. It's not all doom and gloom when we talk about technology and identity. There's this sense of exploration, of pushing boundaries. That's what makes video art so exciting. It's always evolving, reflecting that ever-changing relationship between technology and, well, what it means to be human.
I'm starting to understand how video art goes way beyond just pretty pictures on a screen. It makes you think in a whole new way.
And we've just scratched the surface. There's so much more to unpack. When it comes to self and form in video art, welcome back.
We've seen how artists like Tony Ourseler and Takahiko Limura use distortion and playfulness to get us to rethink what the human form can be.
But what about artists who...
Yeah, what about the ones that take a more subtle approach, you know?
Right. Someone like Peter Campus, his work Interface from 1975, uses mirrors, but not to like distort features.
It's not about changing what we look like,
Yeah, exactly.
but how we see ourselves.
It's about that feeling when you look in the mirror.
Like you recognize yourself,
Right.
but also there's that unfamiliarity.
Yeah, like, do I even know who this is?
Yeah, that's my face, but is that me?
Exactly.
It's kind of trippy.
It is. It is. And that tension, that questioning, it gets at how we form our identities. Remember the source material, talking about human forms being both distorted and formed.
Yeah.
Interface really zeroes in on that formation, that constant process of becoming who we are.
Through our interactions with the world.
And our own reflections.
So it's not just the image we see, but how that image shapes our understanding of ourselves.
Right. And, this ties back to man as God.
Ooh, okay.
It's not just artists manipulating images, but how those manipulations reflect like the bigger power dynamics of image creation.
I see, I see. So Ourseler and Lemura, they're creating these new distorted forms, almost like playing God with the human image.
Right.
And then you have Campus exploring the more subtle internal side of identity.
Through mirrors.
Like two sides of the same coin.
That's a great way to put it. They're both asking this fundamental question. What does it mean to be human? To have a self? In a world where images hold so much power over us.
And we can't forget that power is even stronger now with all this digital stuff everywhere.
Absolutely. Social media filters, photo editing apps, video games, they're all giving us the tools to shape how we present ourselves to the world.
It's almost like we're all artists now.
Yeah, manipulating our own image, playing with this concept of self.
It's like video art has jumped out of the gallery and right into our lives.
That's why this is also relevant. By understanding how video artists play with self and form, we get this new way to look at the digital world.
And how it changes how we think about who we are.
Exactly.
It's fascinating, but honestly, it's a little overwhelming.
What do you mean?
Well, are we all just pawns in this big game of image manipulation?
It's a good question, and it's tough to answer.
Yeah.
But I think the most important thing is awareness.
Okay.
By being more aware of how images are constructed and manipulated,
Yeah.
we can have more control over how we present ourselves.
So it's not about giving up, it's about being more active and aware.
Yeah, exactly. It's about being an active participant, not just a passive consumer.
So video art can actually empower us to deal with this crazy digital world.
Exactly. It gives us a framework for understanding the power dynamics.
Yeah.
And for thinking critically about the images we see everywhere. It's about asking questions, not taking everything at face value.
This has been a real eye-opener.
I agree.
We've explored how video art manipulates the human image.
How it plays with our perception of self.
And how it all connects to our everyday lives in this digital age.
And we've seen that these artistic explorations can help us become more aware of the ways images shape our identities and what it means to be human in this increasingly digital world.
And like video art is holding up a mirror, not just to ourselves, but to our entire culture.
There's still more to explore, though.
Welcome back to the show.
We've talked about so much.
I know, right? From those playful distortions of Ourseler and Lemura to that more subtle approach from Campus.
But video art, it's always pushing the boundaries, isn't it?
It feels like we've only just scratched the surface. So, is there even more to uncover about how video art explores self?
For sure. We were talking earlier about how video art, it lets artists almost act like gods, shaping and molding the human image.
And how that connects to the power we all have now with technology to manipulate images.
Like we're all mini Michelangelos.
Yeah, with our filters and our Photoshop.
Exactly. But what if we take that even further? What if video art could help us go beyond the limits of our physical forms?
Whoa, okay. Now you're talking, are we talking like digital immortality or something? Uploading our consciousness to the cloud?
Not quite, although that's a whole other conversation.
It is.
What I'm getting at is video art can explore self as something more fluid, something that exists beyond our bodies.
Okay. Less about living forever digitally and more about how ourselves can be, I don't know, expressed through this medium.
Grow.
Extended.
Yes, exactly. Think about performance art. When it's captured on video, the artist's body is the medium, right?
Right.
But the recording, it lets the performance live on, even after the artist is gone.
It's like preserving their energy, their essence.
It is. And that brings up some really interesting questions about what makes up the self. Is it just our physical body? Or is it something more? Something that can be captured, transmitted through art.
Whoa. Okay, mind blown. So we've got video art distorting our forms, shaping our identities. Now it can even extend ourselves beyond our physical limits. What's next? Teleportation.
Who knows what the future holds? But that's what art does. It makes us think differently, see beyond the obvious, Ask those big questions about what it means to be human.
Even as technology keeps changing the rules.
Exactly.
And you're right, these questions are more relevant than ever with all this digital stuff going
We're
on.
constantly creating these digital versions of ourselves online. Avatars, profiles, perfectly curated social media posts.
It's like we're all performance artists now,
In a way.
shaping our digital selves for everyone to see.
Exactly. So even though video art has been around for decades, it gives us a way to understand this current obsession with online identity.
That's amazing.
By studying how video artists have explored self, we can better understand how we're all shaping and reshaping our identities in this digital age.
This has been incredible.
It really has.
We started by talking about how video art manipulates the human image.
How it plays with our perception of self.
And now we're seeing how it all connects to our daily lives in this digital world.
It's like video art is holding a mirror up, not just to us as individuals, but to our whole culture.
Exactly. So what should our listeners take away from all this? What should they be thinking about when they see video art? Or even when they're just scrolling through social media?
The most important thing is to be aware. Pay attention to how images are constructed and manipulated. In art, in everyday life. Question those assumptions, and consider how those images might be shaping how you see yourself and the world around you.
Like, video art is giving us the tools to navigate this crazy digital world.
It encourages us to be critical thinkers, to question things, and maybe this deep dive will even inspire some of you to create your own art.
Explore your own self and form.
Exactly. The potential for self-expression and discovery, it's limitless. Even in this digital world.
Maybe especially in this digital world.
I think so.
Well, I'm feeling inspired. Thanks for taking us on this journey. It's really changed how I see things. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring.
And keep pushing those boundaries.
Right.